Yahweh, 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 Yah. Yahweh, 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 Yah. Yahweh, 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 Yah. Way-oh, way-oh, way-hey. Way-oh, way-oh, way. When I first started drumming and singing in circles, I felt that deep in my bones, like this was something culturally that my people did. We had a 4-generation circle, a drumming circle with my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, and then me and my sister. And that sparked more interest in me to go back to school. Even though my mom has always said, this is where we're from, this is who we are, to find my own footing in an urban setting is learning, lifelong. I'm still learning, and I want to continue learning. Teaching about different nations has opened up my knowledge, my drive to want to learn more about my people and wanting to connect with my land. Yahweh, 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 Yah. Yahweh, 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 Yah. Yahweh, 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 yo, way, yo, way, hey. Way, yo, way, yo, way, hey. Way, yo, way, yo, way, hey. My name is Rosalind Smith. I like to go by Roz. My traditional name is Singing Moon Bear Woman, and that was gifted to me from the eldest matriarch in my family, and that's my mother. I am from Estilla First Nations. The English name is Fort Alexandria. It's in between Williams Lake and Quesnel, and we are on both sides of the Fraser River. I work with elementary level, so kindergarten to grade 5, and I feel that if you can start teaching them while they're young, that they might have more knowledge and background for them to carry forward with their own learning about themselves and their own identities. They enjoy drumming so much, and you go into a classroom and they find out that we're drumming today, and then they give their little cheers, and then you know what's the funniest thing is that some of the students will start giggling because they don't know what language I'm singing in. And then I ask them, how many here speak a different language? And most of their hands will go up. And then I'll be like, it's just the same as you speaking your other language that I'm singing in a First Nations language. And then they'll realize, and then they'll even appreciate it more, and they do. And then they want to learn more, and they want to sing more. And I go into a grade 5 class every week, and we drum and sing. And the children are learning these songs, and we're even going to get them to drum and sing on National Indigenous Peoples Day for their own school on their TV broadcast. And we did that last year, and it was a success, so we're going to carry forward and do that again. I have some students, parents not even declaring to schools that they're of Indigenous descent because of the stigmatism that comes with it, where the students are treated a little differently. Even though the government tops up Indigenous funds for those students, I feel that most of the parents are still struggling with identity, and that happens to their children. So my mom told me a story. She said that when I lived down here, I was called a half-breed in both here and on reserve. And she said that she didn't want her children to go through that. So she said that she found the whitest white guy she could so that we could be whitewashed. and so that we could fit into society here. If we couldn't fit into our reserve, which we don't, they still call me white girl when I go up there. Or just comment saying, you know, I find it really interesting that how you're indigenous, but you have red hair and blue eyes. I find that really interested. And I was just like, I'm status First Nations. When they were down for Chief at Hands, there was some Chilcotin chiefs down here. And I went to introduce myself and I said that I'm from Estilla. And they kind of chuckled at me. And I kind of was like, did I say something wrong? And then the gentleman beside, he was a white person, and he said, isn't it pronounced Estilla? Because I was saying Estela, and it's Estilla. And the chiefs just chuckled at me and said, oh, that's how people down here say it. And it hurt because I was like, why couldn't they just teach me? And I think that's where a big disconnection is because I'm what they consider white. And it hurts my heart. And I just want to learn. I understand the racism that they go through, but then they also put it back on their own people. And it's just going to keep being a circle until we heal. If it wasn't for firstvoices.com, honestly, I wouldn't even know how to say masicho, which is thank you in my carrier language, right? Or to say atu and Etienne, my grandmother and my grandfather, because I don't belong on my reserve. And that hurts me to the bone. It's really hard because we're shunned because we look a certain way. And I think that is quite similar stories along the line, where there's alcoholism, there's racism towards us, whether it's our people calling us, or you know, down here people are calling us different, right? My mom recalls my grandmother never saying that she loved her. My grandmother turned to alcohol to numb her pain. And I think that's quite honestly quite similar across the board, because one thing is that they were taught not to speak about negative things. And I think that's why my grandmother held it in and bottled it in. And how was she supposed to release it? She drank. She drank herself into the DTs. Honestly, I think the government is ignoring the issue. Although they might fund Aboriginal centers to put programs in place to help the people, but I don't think, honestly, they're helping individual people because every individual has a different story and have different addictions or alcoholism or even being abused. You know, how do you deal with that? Do they get counseling? Is that in place by the government, or is that from their band? Or those are the big questions that we do need to ask. I do believe that everybody is connected, and that's why we say all my relations, because in the end we are all related in one way or form. We all bleed red. We all have a brain. You know, it would be great if people could just accept each other the way they are.
I'll just give you my Facebook name, Tracy C, and it's CE. I was born in Prince Rupert, and I didn't know that I was part of the 60s scoop until it came to the media. And my parents that adopted me, they didn't know. So they have to live with this. The 60s scoop, the government went into basically all of Canada, all of Canada, and any indigenous families that had children. I don't know if there was a certain age, but most of the people that I knew, they were adopted before they turned 4. So I'm going to say younger ones. Maybe the older ones went to residential school, I don't know. But a lot of the 60 scoops were babies. And we were taken from our families and we were transported all over Canada and put into orphanages. And as I touched on briefly, there were stories made up for each child. And the families that adopted us were given that story, and then we were adopted, and people thinking that they were doing good. They were part of a plan that they weren't aware of, and I think that was really wrong. They actually tried to murder us. They wrapped us in blankets that were diseased, trying to wipe us out so that they could have our land. And to this day, I don't feel safe. I don't. The government still take our children. I have one friend who's been fighting for her kids for over 16 years. She has done every program that they've thrown at her. She's stayed clean and sober. She's done everything by the book, and they refuse to give her back her kids. And we can't figure out why. So she's got all these lawyers trying to fight. And the bottom line is we're indigenous, and they're still trying to keep our kids from us. It's still happening today. The bottom line is we're all human, and for some reason, because this is our land, we don't matter. They just want our land. I think with the 60 scoop and putting us into white families, they were trying to erase our culture, and it's pretty traumatizing to live in your skin going, what did I possibly do wrong at, the age of 1, that you would rip us away from my family, or what did my parents do? What did my grandparents do? What was it that we did that you decided that we didn't deserve our culture? How do you get over having your culture stolen from you? That's something that's irreplaceable. People have tried to bring me to powwows and cultural gatherings, but I don't know. I'm too white to fit in. I go out with my girls and I get called alcoholic and you're not worthy and you're just a mom on welfare living off of, free money, and it's not true. I like to work. I work with children. There's so many of us starving, homeless, and the stereotype. We're all alcoholics and drug addicts. My kids don't even know what alcohol is. The one that sits most with me is they call us all the devil. The racism that I see and witness on a daily, I don't think it's fixable. You'd think that COVID, something as traumatizing as COVID would try to bring people together, but I just think it made people more angry. Being raised in a white family and then not really being welcomed from my tribe when I did surface and get my status card, I felt rejected on both ends. My dad actually had to go to counseling because, again, they were not aware, and that's traumatizing in itself, and I think it's overlooked. I think that they deserve compensation and free therapy as well, because that's a lot to put on somebody, to just wake up and find out that they were part of such a devious plan or whatever. I don't even know what happened. My sister messaged me, and I know she's not my biological, but she was like, I really just don't know how to handle you or deal with you, and I don't want you around my kids. Again, I lost my family. So they did it to me twice. How's that? It's just now I realize this. Wow. When I was old enough to apply for my status card, the very first thing they said is, okay, here's your status card, but you'll never get a dime from us because you were adopted by a white family. So not only was I kidnapped and put up for adoption, but now it's held against me. You know, stuff that wasn't my doing or my parents' doing. You know, and I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I'm caught between two worlds, and it's hard to figure out which way I want to go. So I feel invisible. We're not invisible. We're just human beings trying to survive. Trying to survive with what we have left. And they haven't left us much.
Song for the little children, KIRS, the 215 for the lost souls. Hopefully this song can help in some little way to guide them on their way home. Little children buried in the ground, buried in the ground, whose souls were flying round and round, flying round and round, waiting for the day we would be found, all waiting for the day we would be found. We all heard you sing and pray. We all heard you sing and pray for us to find